Jason Woodbury is running for Carson City District Attorney, formerly with the District Attorney's Office and now in private practice. Mr. Woodbury wants to build the office into something strong. He also is dedicated to honesty, hard work, and integrity. He will be accountable to the community by upholding the law fairly. He's a graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno and the University of Utah Law School. Mr. Woodbury is married with 3 children. Meet Jason Woodbury next on Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
Now, Lawyers, Guns, and Money with criminal defense attorney David Houston.
Good evening and welcome to Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I'm David Houston. Election season is here. It is my pleasure to welcome Jason Woodbury, candidate for Carson City District Attorney. Jason, thank you for taking time out to come and sit down and talk with us. I always love the opportunity, especially someone I've known for a long time, to be able to present on our show someone who I believe will do a great job, who's literally been devoting their life to public service. But I always have that question. First of all, I want the public to know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here
Absolutely,
today,
my pleasure.
I live in Carson City. My family is my wife. We've been married 8 years, and we have 2 children together, and I have a stepson, Noah Jennings, who's 15 years old. My twins are 6 years old.
Twins?
And, yep, just started kindergarten. So that's the important stuff about my family. I grew up in Elko,
right,
Nevada, and my parents are still out there, and my brother and sister-in-law and their family. I went to school at the University of Nevada, Reno. And then once I graduated there, I went to law school at the University of Utah. Was fortunate enough to get a job with Judge Michael Griffin, who was a longtime judge. Yep, in Carson City, and was able to clerk for him for a period of time. And then was fortunate enough that Noel Waters, who was the DA out there for many, many years, hired me as a deputy district attorney, and away we went.
You know, the interesting thing is this, and I'm proud of the fact that I've known your dad for a long, long time. And your dad has been a public servant since day one. He's worked for the prosecutor's office out in Elko. He's an outstanding prosecutor. And then all of a sudden one day I meet Jason, and I thought, man, there's a remarkable resemblance between that guy out in Elko and this guy. And of course then we started to talk, but it seems like public service is kind of in your blood. Why? I mean, you're a bright lawyer, and you know, as some would say, you could probably open a private practice and perhaps do better in a financial sense in a private setting. What about public service seems so important, not just to you, but it's in your family? What about it wants to make you, why do you want to be DA?
Yeah, well, I'm so happy you brought up my dad, because
great guy.
He's really the guy who's my role model. You know,
Right.
I was fortunate enough to look across a dinner table at my mom and my dad, and those were my role models. And I can remember being a kid and riding my bike to the courthouse and watching my dad do his thing, and it was just something that I admired so much, and my dad put his heart so much into it that once I figured out I wasn't going to be a professional baseball player, there really was no other option for me other than to do this. So they're still out in Elko. He was DA for 16 years, 4 terms. And is just a great resource for me as I've come up into the law. And so, you know, it was important for me to come out into Carson City and kind of make my own way, learn my own things, make my own mistakes. And that's what I did for the first part of my career in the DA's office. And for the last 10 years, I have been in private practice. And really, really like private practice, like the freedom, like the people and the challenges. And I'll be honest with you, I do like the money.
Of course.
But I loved being in the district attorney's office. I loved being a prosecutor. And now's the right time for me and for my family. And I want to get back and do it. I think I can do a good job.
You know, interestingly, you're that person, and I'll tell you something I admired. The fact of the matter is, you were set up in Elko. Your dad obviously was very well known, prosecutor in Elko. I remember as a young defense lawyer being beaten up by your dad. Always did it though with the spirit of integrity and what he believed was fair. Doesn't mean we always agreed, but I'll tell you what, I can respect anybody who truly believes what they're doing and believes that it's correct. But you could have simply followed that route. Been a lot easier. You chose to come to an area where necessarily you weren't a household name. People didn't know you, and you're the new kid, the new prosecutor, and you did remarkably well. But the idea of being a prosecutor seems to be something that you find to be so important because of the integrity attached to it and the fact you do the job fairly, and I admire that. What do you think you bring to the office that, let's say, is important for the upcoming times? I mean, things are changing all of the time. What do you have to offer to the general public of Carson City that says, Jason's the best guy for this job?
Yeah, and that's really the question, because, and I've thought a lot about that and thought before I decided with my family that I was going to make this run. What I think I bring to the job more than anything, Dave, is passion.
Right.
This is really what I want to do. And I can remember when I was in the DA's office in Carson City from 1999 to 2003, we had a great bunch of people. They were fun to work with, and we all took tremendous personal pride in our work.
Right.
We all wanted to be the best prosecutor, and we kind of ribbed each other about it.
And gave each other
gave each other a hard time, but it was competition, but it was healthy. We all wanted to be the best prosecutor in the office, and we wanted our office to be the best in the state. And I still have that passion. Now, different things motivate different people. That healthy competition motivated me. But there's good people in the Carson City DA's office, and you got to find out as a leader what motivates those folks, because you really depend on them to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you implement policy and say, this is what we want to accomplish, this is what we want to do, but it's those folks who really get you to where you want to be. So you got to find out what motivates them. Maybe one person is very passionate about domestic battery cases.
Right.
Maybe one person wants to work with children. Maybe one person doesn't like the courtroom so much, but they're great at motion or appellate work. You got to find what motivates them. You got to put them in a position to shine, to be superstars, and I think that's what I really bring to the district attorney's office, is I want those folks to do well, because if they do well, the office does well, and the community does well, because they have a great DA's office.
It seems, even though obviously the campaign season is very early on, you've garnered a significant amount of support. And it seems that support comes from the fact that people in Carson have gotten to know you, as you said, not only as a prosecutor with the DA's office, but you've also had the chance to go out and engage in private practice. And it seems your reputation has continued to follow you of being a person who's honest, straightforward, and you're going to do your best to get the job done as you see the right job, in your opinion, according to the law. When you're sitting as the DA, do you think you're going to miss the opportunity to go to court? Are you planning to actively prosecute cases? Or do you think the job from an administrative point is going to be so overwhelming you're going to find yourself doing maybe more of that?
Sure. And that's a really great question, because just because you love being a prosecutor,
right.
DA is kind of a different situation. And look, there's going to be human resource issues and management issues that probably nobody really likes to deal with, but the buck stops. You got to do it. You got to take care of it. Fortunately for me, number one, I'm happy to do that and do the best job that I can. In private practice, we have the same types of issues. You have to manage leave of your staff and the other issues that pop up from time to time. But fortunately for me, Carson City is really different than a jurisdiction like Clark County or even Washoe County,
right.
in that it's small enough that it really requires a working DA. I mean, we don't have the luxury of just having a person who sits and makes policy and kind of keeps an eye on.
Sends out memos.
Exactly, sends out memos. There's plenty of opportunity to get in the courtroom, which is where I love to be.
Right.
And I won't get in there, I'm sure, as much as I would like to, but I'll get in there. I'll get my hands dirty, and in a lot of ways, I think that's really the best way to figure out what's going on and to keep an eye on your office, keep an eye on your people, see what's developing with the judges, how they're feeling about the cases that you're bringing before them. And I only know one way to do things, and that's to get in and do it yourself.
Makes all the sense in the world. Don't go away. We're going to be back in a few moments with more with Jason Woodbury, and quite frankly, why we here at Lawyers, Guns, and Money feel he's the best man for the job. Don't go away. Welcome back to Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I'm David Houston, and joining me today is Jason Woodbury, candidate for Carson City District Attorney. Jason, one of the things that I'm always curious about is what's your passion? In other words, I know that you want to be the district attorney, but I know you come from a family that has very strong family values and firm beliefs in the difference between right and wrong. What do you see as the idea that makes you the guy who's better able to represent the folks of Carson City as the district attorney?
Yeah. My passion is really that I was a political science major at the University of Nevada, and had a great professor of constitutional law. Bill Eubank was there, and he really ignited me in that particular subject.
Right.
I am fascinated by the Constitution, which really is the contractual relationship between the people and the government, and and it's so nuanced and interesting, these factual scenarios that come up, and that's what if I had to identify a passion, that's what I really enjoy thinking about and writing about and acting on. But the real attraction to me about the district attorney's office is its diversity in terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You can be in justice court on one day on maybe a misdemeanor case of domestic battery, and the next day you're before the Supreme Court arguing a Fourth Amendment challenge to a search and seizure. The next day you're in front of the Board of Supervisors trying to help them navigate a particular contractual problem. I mean, you really just can get such a diversity. And look, if it's like in Nevada, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
You'll do something else.
If you're bored as DA, wait 5 minutes and you'll find something.
Don't you find that when people think of the district attorney, they think of the guy, maybe because of television or whatever, but they think, okay, that's the guy who prosecutes criminals and goes to court all the time. But the district attorney actually does much, much more than just that.
Oh, absolutely.
And, give the viewers an idea of some of the other things the DA does, because we all assume, well, the DA's going to court and he's doing jury trials and he's trying to convict people if he believes they've been, committing crimes. But what else does the DA's office do as far as representation?
Sure. Well, the DA is statutorily charged as the legal representative, the attorney for the jurisdiction, meaning you represent in Carson City, you represent the Board of Supervisors, you represent the various departments in Carson City, and that goes along with all the things that are entailed in representing a private client. When there are labor negotiations between city management and city employees or city bargaining units, the DA is involved in that. When the city gets sued, when they cut down a tree limb and it falls on somebody's car, that's the DA represents them in that. And then there's questions that arise as to open meeting law, the ethics requirements of public officials. So there's anything that you might come across in representing a private client, a private company, or anything like that, almost all of it the city's going to deal with at one time or another.
Now, as the district attorney, with so many different departments to concern yourself with and so much different litigation going on, how do you keep up to speed on what's going on?
Well, you have a lot of help.
Right.
And that's a very important component and talent of any district attorney is you've got to have the right people on there, because even in a jurisdiction that's relatively small like Carson City, the district attorney is not in a position to know in detail every criminal case that's happening,
of course,
every legal issue that's coming before you. So that's number one. And if I could say that there's one critical talent to a DA, it's the talent to bring good people in, to retain those good people, and to trust them. You got to be able to trust them. as far as staying on top of things, you got to be in the office. You got to be accessible. There's lots of opportunities for a district attorney to go to national conferences and to go to meetings, and certainly that has
Right.
A role to play. That's important in it, and it helps develop the office. But man, I'm telling you, you got to be in the office. People got to know you're in the office, and your doors got to be open when they have questions, when they have concerns, so you can put your head together with them and figure out the problems that come up.
You know, I see a lot of prosecutors' offices. I'm fortunate enough to where I practice all over the country, and I see how different offices are run. And what strikes me as being the most successful prosecution office is the office where, as you said, you bring in talented people and then you trust them to exercise that talent and make the best choices. DAs are born with a great deal of discretion as far as within their office. How do you instill in your prosecutors the idea of exercising that discretion, and in other words, how to make the right choices of what to charge and how strongly, let's say, to go after a particular case? Sure. What do you try to teach?
Yeah, and that's the question. That's
Right.
a great question. So for me, it starts with the kind of person that you're hiring. We want to hire, when I say good people, certainly talented lawyers, smart lawyers are a part of that, but they got to be people with good judgment. You know, people with a good, broad background who aren't going to look at a piece of paper, a police report, and say, man, I'm going all the way after this one, or man, I really sympathize with this particular situation and I'm not going to go very hard about it. You got to have good judgment, and that
Right.
judgment develops over time. I mean, you know, no prosecutor walks into an office day one ready to prosecute a real serious rape or a murder or something like that. So you got to learn some hard lessons, and I've been through some hard lessons there. But they made me a better lawyer for sure, and I think a better person. And that was part of, in private practice, I've done some criminal defense. A fair amount of criminal defense. And I think that makes me a better
Absolutely.
prosecutor as well. Not only strategically, because you kind of learn to think about cases maybe from a different angle than you knew before, but also just as a person and seeing, you know, a lot of the folks that come in, have made a mistake, or maybe they haven't. And it's made me a more well-rounded person, and I think that's really what we're looking for, is a person who's a talented attorney, but frankly, more important, is a good person. That's what we're trying to get to.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'll tell you a really good example of that. I have clients that come in, and in some cases, I can't say in every case, but in some cases, I wish there were the available forum to where a prosecutor could come to know the client as well as I do.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, prosecutors aren't allowed to sit down and have a chat with the defendant and then try to gauge who that defendant may or may not be. And having had the experience in the criminal defense world, to the extent you've been a member of the criminal defense bar, do you think, as you said, that well-roundedness adds to your ability to not only make fair decisions as far as when you're the DA, but as well convey that sort of knowledge to those who work with you?
I think so. I mean, and again, there are some things you can only learn through experience.
Sure.
But I think it does put me in a good position to do that. And it also, I hope, gives me some credibility, because there are certainly times when it is the role of the DA to put his or her foot down and
Right.
to say, by God, this person came into our community, he or she did a bad thing to a good person, and this one calls for all we got. It's time to pay. And that's a very important component of being a DA as well. And I'll also say that just as important as the criminal experience, I think my experience as an attorney, as a private attorney,
Right.
for companies, for people, is important as well. Because what I see tending to happen with public attorneys is they get in maybe a mode where no is the only answer they know. you can't do this because of this. You can't do that because of that. And that becomes how they view their role.
Right.
Rather than finding a solution to the problem. Now, you're a private attorney, I'm a private attorney. We don't get paid for finding a no. We get paid to find a solution, to solve a problem, to figure out a legal, appropriate way to get to an objective that a client wants to get to. So that's the other aspect of my private experience that I think can be valuable with the district attorney's office.
Don't go away. Hold that thought. We're going to be right back in a moment with more from Jason Woodbury, candidate for Carson City District Attorney. Welcome back to Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I'm David Houston, and with me today is Jason Woodbury, candidate for Carson City District Attorney. Jason, we've had an opportunity to talk about a lot of things, but I wanted to say what I consider to be the best for last, and that is, what is your vision for the Carson City District Attorney's Office? What do you think are the important issues that are facing you as District Attorney?
Right. And my vision for the District Attorney's Office is going to be an office that provides to its client, the people of the city of Carson City, the highest possible public legal representation that exists in the state of Nevada. I mean, that's where we want to get to. One particular issue that we haven't yet touched on that I'd like to mention is about the speed of justice. And there have been cases handled in the Carson City District Attorney's Office that really raised some concern before I was looking at running for District Attorney, and now as I am running for District Attorney. And they're cases that involve children, right. And more specifically, children who are alleged to be the victim of some kind of sexual abuse. To me, those are special cases. I mean, all cases are equal priority, but some are more equal than others. And when you have a kid, particularly a kid who's been subjected to something like that involved, they need to be handled with care. And we've got a situation where, in my opinion, those cases are taking, in some instances, too long to process. And that really is damaging to the kids who are involved in this, because the worst part of it is really the anticipation of having to testify and go through that. And when you get them prepared to testify, and then they come to court, and court is canceled. Right. And then they come back to court, and court is canceled again. We recently, had an outburst from a young woman who had gone through that and learned in the courtroom that the hearing was postponed for the 4th time. And it was 7 months since the alleged perpetrator had been arrested. That's too long. That's something we've got to fix. I'm going to personally monitor felony and gross misdemeanor cases that have been in the system for 4 months without a preliminary hearing. If there's good reason that they haven't gone, fine. Sometimes there is. But if there isn't, those cases are going to get processed immediately.
You know, case management, justice delayed, justice denied, and all of that. And I come from the defense bar, and I truly do understand, especially in circumstances where you may have a very young victim, even a very old victim, the idea of building up, getting ready to do something, and then having to deflate, and then build up again, that's a difficult thing to do. I want to thank you for coming on and giving our viewers a chance to get to know you as much as I do. I congratulate you on your choice, and I wish you all the luck in the world. And I want to let you know that, again, this is somebody I think will do a fine job for the citizens of Carson City. So thank you, Jason, and thank you for joining us today. You have a great Sunday.